Alright, so I'm gonna level with you guys really quick. The other day, I was playing through some of the old Mario Kart games recording B-roll footage, and usually that just consists of Super Mario Kart, Mario Kart 64, and Mario Kart Super Circuit. I don't really keep footage of those games on hand, so every single time I talk about them in a video, I re-record the footage for it, but that's aside the point. Anyway, usually whenever I do this, I kind of have a somewhat miserable experience. Not that I hate these three games or anything, but I just don't really find them as fun as all of the games that would come later in the series. However, this time around, something kind of weird happened, because after I played through Super Mario Kart and Mario Kart 64, games that to this day I still just don't really like playing that much, although I do have a lot of respect for their influence in the series and, how much they innovated the whole racing game genre, I just don't find them that fun to come back to. Then I got to Mario Kart Super Circuit and I started having fun. I felt weird. I was like, why am I enjoying myself? Up to this point, I've always played Mario Kart Super Circuit and just kind of seen it as Super Mario Kart, but a little bit better and on a handheld. So I wanted to talk about why I think I might actually like Mario Kart Super Circuit. I think that it may finally be coming around to me after all of these years. And this is one of those games that it's very popular to say oh, this game is so underrated. It's the hidden gem of the Mario Kart franchise. And I'm not here to say that I think it's better than some of the games that came later, like Mario Kart 8 or Double Dash or DS or Wii or whatever have you. But after really thinking about it, I do think that Mario Kart Super Circuit is better than I once kind of considered it to be. So this is for a variety of reasons, and I'm going to go ahead and quickly run through them and just kind of what I found after replaying this game for the 15th time in my life. First of all, what I found is that drifting, not that I, really got good at it during this portion of me playing the game, but I did find it to be much more tolerable compared to the two games that came before. Super Mario Kart drifting was just non-existent. It was completely frustrating. I'm not really sure how people have just pulled off being able to confidently drift in that game. And in Mario Kart 64, once again, it's just very frustrating if you are not already familiar with playing that game. And Super Circuit definitely does have a learning curve to it, but unlike those previous two games, once I kind of figured out the whole mechanic of drifting and then kind of jumping in place to straighten yourself back out whenever, landing on a straightaway after a tight turn, it is pretty satisfying to do. Once again, let me reiterate, because I'm sure you can tell by the footage that I'm using in this video, I'm definitely not the best at this game, and much of this was recorded in 100cc, because I haven't quite reached that point where I can record 150cc in this game and not feel just pathetic because I'm constantly in the off-road. But either way, I actually had fun, and that's more than what I can say whenever playing by myself with the previous two games, because with Mario Kart 64, that's mainly a multiplayer game for me. If I'm playing with friends, it's definitely more fun than playing by myself. But Super Circuit, I had fun, and at the end of the day, that's more than, I can say for the previous two games. The second point that I'll bring up is that Nintendo brought all 20 Super Mario Kart tracks into the game, doubling the track count from 20 to 40 total, and I mean, if you really think about it, this is the most tracks that was in a Mario Kart game all the way up until Mario Kart 8 finally beated it out with its DLC whenever that initially launched in 2014 and 2015. Now, I do think an asterisk is definitely warranted with this point, because the original tracks from Super Mario Kart are admittedly not very good, and they're pretty much the exact same in this game. However, that's not why I think it's a good thing that we have these 20 tracks returning. No, the main reason I like this is because for the first time in the series, it feels like there is a true sense of unlocking things and playing through the Grand Prix and feeling a sense of achievement as you're going through them. In Super Mario Kart, you could unlock 150cc in the Special Cup, but that was about it in that game. And in Mario Kart 64, pretty much everything is given to you from the get-go. However, in Mario Kart Super Circuit, you have these 5 extra cups that kind of definitely are not easy to unlock, especially on 150cc, because you need to get a star ranking in every single cup and then also collect 100 coins in it in a second playthrough of it. And while this definitely isn't super difficult to do, it does certainly make the game feel somewhat rewarding to kind of like unlock all of these cups, so that way it's like, you know, you unlocked the full capability of playing all the tracks in the game. And to that same point, this was the first game to introduce the star grading system, where essentially you would play a Grand Prix, and then at the end of it, based on your performance and a whole array of factors, it would give you a grade. So it could either be something like C, B, A, or if you did even better than that, 1 star, 2 stars, or 3 stars. In later games like Mario Kart 8, this was much more generous. Within Mario Kart 8, essentially if you just get first place in all 4 races, you get 3 stars. It is the complete opposite in Super Circuit. It is almost too critical of many things. And while it certainly is very critical, I don't think it takes away from the enjoyment of going for these stars when playing through the Grand Prix, because I found myself even getting a sufficient amount of footage and I could just kind of move on to the next game that I was going to record footage for. I still would just kind of like, you know, play the game for fun and try to get at least 1 star in each of the cups. This in turn engaged me in learning how to play the game with drifting, or learning how to collect enough coins in each of the races, since coins are just kind of laid out on the tracks very similarly to Super Mario Kart. Like I said, if I could change anything about the star grading system, I would definitely make it just a little bit more forgiving. I think that aspects like giving you a penalty for using certain items like the star is very counterintuitive to the whole premise of using items strategically to your advantage. But at the end of the day, while this system was definitely refined in later games, I think that this sense of difficulty is something that Super Circuit is really kind of alone in the series whenever it comes to the whole grading system with the Grand Prix, as it would casually get easier and easier with the subsequent releases. And I'm not here to say that it being easier innately makes it bad. I'm all for accessibility, especially with this modern direction that games are taking. I think that the fact that anyone is able to pick up and play the modern Mario Kart games and feel much more forgiving to them and much more lax in terms of introducing them to the core mechanics is overall a great thing. However, I also love the aspect of Super Circuit kind of punching you in the face and making you really kind of have to practice and learn how to get good grades in playing these cups. Another little thing about Super Circuit that I really like is the quick run option, and this is something that only this game has in the series. Essentially, it's kind of like a primitive version of versus mode with no customization. That being that you click on it and you just get to play any one track in a normal like Grand Prix setting where there's items and CPUs and everything. And it's so fast paced. Like you just click on it, click which track you want to play, and you're right into the race. I kind of like that. I do love the modern version of versus mode with all the different options and everything, but I also like the way the game just kind of lets you, if you just want to play one track, and by the way, this is great for a person like me that's recording footage, because let's just say I need footage of like Sky Garden, for example, but I don't want to have to play the entire Grand Prix to get to Sky Garden. I can just click on it, play it, and I'm already done with that. Nowadays, at least in the past week or so, Super Circuit has been a lot of fun, and the next point is my biggest illustration of that being the original tracks in this game. The tracks in this game are not all perfect, as none of the whole original selection of any Mario Kart game is all perfect. With Super Circuit, of course, we have like Bowser Castle 2 being pretty hideous to look at, the whole screen shake of Snowland, just to name a few. However, the highlights of this game, tracks like Ribbon Road, Sunset Wilds, Rainbow Road, Sky Garden, Cheeseland, Lakeside Park, are far and away better than the previous 2 games' best offerings. The themes for the tracks are better than ever before, the layouts are fun, and despite it being all sprite based and kind of like on a flat piece of paper with the hardware limitations, I still find these tracks so much more captivating than the previous games in the franchise. And I think that the potential for these tracks is really showcased with the remakes that we would later see, kind of bringing the ideas and concepts for these tracks to a level that the Game Boy Advance was never able to fully emulate. And similarly to my point about the tracks being better in this game, the soundtrack is also better. And this may be a hot take, but I don't even think that the soundtracks of the previous two games were that good. Super Mario Kart was iconic, of course. The main theme has stood the test of time to this day, and some of the track themes are certainly very iconic as well. However, as a whole, I don't think that that soundtrack has nearly held up as much as all of the subsequent games in the series as a whole. Same deal pretty much with Mario Kart 64. I think that the soundtrack is good, but not great. I think aside from a few standouts like Rainbow Road and the main theme, it isn't as strong as much of else that we've seen with the series. Mario Kart Super Circuit, on the other hand, is one of the highlights in the series for me. A lot of the tracks that I just brought up for being some of my favorites, part of the reason why their character is displayed so strongly is because of their musical tracks. I mean, just look at Sunset Wilds, for example, still being, to this day, one of my favorite tracks in the series in terms of music. You also got the Sublime Rainbow Road theme from this game, the Ribbon Road theme, Sky Garden. I mean, the list just kind of goes on and on. And finally, the other point that I want to bring up is that visually, despite the Game Boy Advance definitely being a little bit outdated, you could say, to this day, especially with it being a portable system, I find that the visuals of this game are very captivating to look at in a very unique and charming way. A lot of the backgrounds for these tracks have a lot of character and animation put into them, just like as something like Shy Guy Beach with the movement of the ship in the background, or the glowing of the faces in Broken Pier. A lot of the track's backgrounds have a layer of depth to them. You may see trees on one layer, and then behind that there's a whole other layer of trees, and you can kind of see them being separated within their various fields of depth. But yeah, this was a really weird video to make, and one that I never expected to make. I always just kind of found Super Circuit to just be like, yeah, it's a respectable Mario Kart. It was the first handheld entry in the series. However, it definitely had its fair share of flaws. And while I still do definitely think that this is not a perfect game, I think that some of the tracks have not aged well. I think that the star grading system is way too harsh. However, I still think that this is the first truly good Mario Kart game in the series. And I just finally want to bring it home because I know I bashed 64 and Super Mario Kart a lot in this video. I still do respect those games a lot. I know that the racing genre would be completely different if it weren't for those two games. So while Mario Kart Super Circuit may not be like all of a sudden my favorite game in the series, I definitely think that my Mario Kart game ranking has been shaken up a little bit in the past week, and I'm excited to play Mario Kart Super Circuit more and see if my opinions kind of dynamically mold as I get more and more used to the way drifting and controlling this game works, because like I said before, it has a learning curve, but it definitely seems to be very satisfying. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any other opinions about Super Circuit, whether it being overrated, underrated, perfectly rated, feel free to let me know in the comments. If you did enjoy the video though, feel free to subscribe, as I'm going to be doing a lot more videos within the Mario Kart field, as I always do over here on this channel, and it's the best way to support the channel as well, so definitely feel free to do that. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and as always, peace out.